Working on a 1997 Jeep Grand Cherokee.
We're replacing some of the front steering components in this vehicle, and right now we're working on the front track bar. On the passenger side, it's going to bolt in on that lower hole right there. Up over here on the driver's side, it's going to bolt into that little pocket right there, and that's going to be the ball joint end of the track bar.
Here's some track bars on the table. We'll take a look at some of the information.
Well, here's our faster. This is a captive nut that goes in on the other side of the vehicle because you can't fit a wrench in there. So that's why it has this tab on here. This should be a 15 millimeter in order to remove that. Now when we take a look at the diameter of the fastener itself, it's 0.390. Here's the bore that bolt's going to go into, and we've measured those bores, and this is 0.375, and that's going to be for our 5.2 liter. This is our new one here, and this is 0.404, and that's going to be for our 4 liter. And here is the part number for anyone who's interested. Here's our old one, and again, that's going to be 0.404, and this is again for the 4 liter. We measured the diameter of these track bars, and for the 5.2 liter, we got 1.073. Our new one is 1.100, and this old one here is 1.063. If we take a look at our joint end over here with the ball joint, they all are greasable. We've got a grease circ on that one. We have a grease circ that needs to be installed in our new one right there. We also have a grease circ on the old one right here.
I'm pretty confident the same part can be used for both the 5.2 liter and the 4 liter. All the dimensions are pretty close to the same, and as you take a look at the table there, they all look to be the same dimension. I think that this part could be used for both vehicles. We've installed our grease circ there on that end. And when the ball joint goes into that little pocket area, there's not very much room for a carter pin there. So there's a pull pin, you can use that, or you could just simply use some wire, and it might be easier to remove the pin in the future if you had to do that. The old one, I could not get it out. It was rusted, seized in there. I basically had to bust it and force the nut off around it. Likely going to use this one here because it's a thicker material than the wire, and it's a pull pin style. It should come out fairly easy. When it came to this bolt here, this is a factory fastener. This should be a 15 millimeter on the head here, and then this is a captive nut that goes on there when you're installing this, and that's going to go on this end here. And here's our bolt goes in there, and you can see that it's pretty loose. You could switch that over to a 3/8 if you want, but you're not gaining anything because it's pretty loose too. So what I ended up doing was I took a 7/16 and I put that in there, and I had to remove a little bit of material, but after putting that in there, I got just enough where there's lots of clearance for it to turn and move, but it's not real loose. Remove maybe 10 to 20 thou off of the outside of this shank here, just so it would fit nice in the bore. When it came to the tab here, I rebuilt a new tab, and then I found like a locker nut, and because that's pretty much what that is too. That's a locker nut as well. So just as a demonstration here, I'm going to use these 2 washers, and that's going to replicate the body metal that's in there. So that washer is the thickness of each side of the body metal that this is going to fit inside. So you'll see that it's still sticking out just a little bit past that. Now what I'm doing is I'm accounting for this amount of material right here. That is going to make up for that difference in material there. And so the threads end where this would go into the nut. This bolt will be tight to the nut, but this should be loose and be able to swivel inside of that pocket that it goes into. If you tighten it down and you restrict that movement, it's going to wear out this rubber bushing inside here because the center bore will be fixed tight, and then this thing will be trying to articulate, and then that'll just wear out that rubber prematurely. What I've done in my case is I've welded a 1/2 inch nut on the end of that 7/16 so that all of my nuts are going to be the same size. Going to be the same size as that, going to be the same size as that, going to be the same size as the Castle nuts. It's just a personal preference for me to make everything consistent with the same size. I've got this in, and I'm going to use the wrench to tighten that bolt. I don't want this too tight because then it's going to wear out that rubber too much. Right now I have it snug, and I have this where it's free turning right now. Once I lift that side up and I get that installed into the pocket up there, then what I'll do is I'll finish installing that side, And then I'll come back over here and I'll give this about a quarter turn just to snug that up just a little bit more to give it some more tension, but not too much that it's going to wreck the rubber. The castle nut's installed with that pull pin on there. I also put a small washer underneath that castle nut as well. I'm using the stubby wrench to get in there because there's not a whole lot of room. After I get that hand tight, I'm going to double wrench it, and I give a few more cranks with that wrench on there, give it a little more leverage and tighten it up just a little bit more. We've also greased our ball joint there. So I'm just going to tighten this down. I can feel by the wrench that that's probably tight enough right there. The original hardware is in the back here, and this is a 4-liter Jeep. This is the stuff that we dropped out of there. There's our dampener and there's our rods. We got our tie rod end here. We got a tie rod end there. We got a tie rod end there, and then this is a connecting sleeve that connects these two. And then this bar has a tie rod on there, and then that bar just goes here to the threaded sleeve. As we're laying our parts out for assembly, this is the bar for the 4-liter right here. And then this was the tie rod end that was listed to go with the 4-liter. The problem is the diameter on the tie rod won't fit into this sleeve end here. And now I assume there should be 2 of these that would fit on either end. So there's this one for this end. And then there's another one that should fit on that end there. This is the rod listed for the 4-liter. These are the tie rod ends that are listed for the 4-liter. There was some kind of mistake that happened here. And perhaps what it was, this bar here is for the 4-liter. Then we have a sleeve, and then we have our tie rod end. Now this is the same tie rod end as that one. What happened, I think, was there's a separate or different tie rod end, obviously, that goes with this, that got missed. Now this may be a good thing because the 2 tie rods that I got for this rod here, there's one there, and there's the other one there. Now that one there I've got attached with a sleeve, and it goes to this bar here, and that's for a 5.2 liter right there. And here's the difference in the part number. So that's an MDS 1312, and this one here, different part, same location, is an MDS 1326S. Now that bar there is a heavier rod than this one here, and that one's hollow as well. I think it's a stronger, better component to use, and I think that it'll fit just fine. All we got to do is match up our distance. So from here to here is the same as right there to there, and that measured out at 42 inches. I'm pretty confident once I set that it should work, and then we've got some heavier suspension parts on this Jeep.